Hello, my friends, and welcome. I'm your host, Lydia, and this is Whispers and Warnings, a podcast where true crime, the paranormal, and magic all come together. Here, we don't do deep dives. I'm not going to be bringing you any new or groundbreaking information. But if you're not someone who, like me, is knee-deep in the world of true crime, or if you just don't have an hour plus to devote to an episode, I'm here to bring you an interesting story in a slightly more digestible amount of time. So light a candle, take a peek over your shoulder, and let's jump in. This week I am going rogue. I want to talk about the late 90s, performative feminism, and how even my childhood idol isn't immune to the Christian right pipeline. The late 90s and early 2000s have been making a comeback recently, and while part of me loves the style and nostalgia, sometimes you have to take off the rose-colored glasses and examine things a little bit closer. Which brings me to this week's topic, the absolute queen of rebellion and ska punk of the era, Gwen Stefani. First of all, I want to preface this by saying that this is all my opinion and from my perspective of the situation. This feels like one of those subjects that could get you a stern cease and desist letter if you're not careful, but damn if this isn't something that I want to talk about. I started hearing rumors, particularly after she married Blake Shelton, of all people, that she had gone down the conservative right Christian pipeline. And when I started the research for this episode, I really hoped for the sake of my childhood that view would not be true. To start, I want to walk you through a brief history of No Doubt, but specifically focusing on Gwen for the sake of this episode. In the late 80s, a band called No Doubt was formed by Eric Stefani, Gwen's brother, and John Spence, who was originally on lead vocals. Gwen was 18 at the time, and being a ska punk band was a huge ensemble, including the regular vocals, guitar, drums, bass, plus all of the horned instruments. So the band was huge, starting off at 9 members. In 1987, from what I can tell, the number grew to a whopping 11 members and the band started playing backyard shows. Sadly, John Spence died by just days before they were supposed to play an important show in front of industry employees. Rocked by this news, the band disbanded but decided to regroup soon after. After another vocalist switch, Gwen took over lead vocals for No Doubt. They released their self-titled album in 1992, but it didn't sell very well, selling only 30,000 copies, which seems like a lot to me for a debut band in the early 90s, but what do I know? Following more member swaps and transitions and some drama with record companies, they released their second album, titled Tragic Kingdom, in 1995. This album, along with Gwen's personal style, had the world in a chokehold. You'll likely recognize most, if not all, of the songs on this album, but just to name a few, Just a Girl, Spiderwebs, and Don't Speak. They went on a 27-month international tour in the wake of the album's success and were nominated for a total of 4 Grammys at that year's awards ceremony for Best New Artist, Best Rock Album, Song of the Year, and Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals for Don't Speak. And one of the things that made them so popular and unique was Gwen's personal style. She was an absolute style icon of the time. She embodied that alt-grunge girl attitude of the 90s in every way possible. There's so many famous shots of her from that time, and I'll include a few in the Instagram post for this episode. But one that always comes to mind for me, she has blue hair. It's just wrapped up in these little space buns. She has her makeup done with her eyes outlined with these little jewels. She's wearing a matching bikini top. Her wardrobe had it all. She had the baggy pants, crop tops, chunky belts, dyed hair, pencil-thin eyebrows, which sounds crazy now, but was really popular in the late 90s and early 2000s. And she was just someone that so many young people wanted to be when they grew up, myself included. She was also in amazing shape physically, and this was back in the day when you'd have to go to the grocery store and buy actual paper magazines to read about celebrities. And I remember reading an article in one of them about how strict she was with her diet and her workout regimen. And I remember thinking it was genuinely impressive. especially given that she had this kind of bad girl, devil may care attitude that she portrayed. To know that she was so disciplined behind the scenes was just, I always remember that years later. And I found a Reddit post that I'll link in the show notes of throwback photos of her from the 90s and 2000s with just comment after comment sharing the same desire to be her that I had. Anyway, she was cool. She was so cool. The band released Return of Saturn in 2000, and despite also being an incredible album with songs like Ex-Girlfriend and Bathwater, it wasn't as successful commercially as Tragic Kingdom, but that didn't stop them, and they released Rock Steady in 2001 with Hey Baby and Hella Good, which put them back on the charts. And Hey Baby was the soundtrack to my middle school dances. I can still remember how hyped my friends and I would be to dance to that song. Following that album, the band went on tour with Blink-182 in 2004. I happened to go to that tour before taking a hiatus. I remember Gwen hyping up the crowd so much that even the people in the back of the lawn, me, were jumping up and down to spider webs. During the hiatus from No Doubt, Gwen embarked on a solo project and released a full solo album titled Love, Angel, Music, Baby. She launched into a solo tour in 2005 and announced the pregnancy of her first son with her partner Gavin Rosdale of the band Bush. The couple was ultimately together from 2002 to 2016 and had 3 children. Over the years, the band eventually got back together and toured, which I did not attend because the ticket prices were insane, but eventually disbanded again around 2015, and all interviews after that time were just kind of vague, without any promise of them getting back together in the future or anything like that. There was some other music and stuff in between there, both from the band and solo from Gwen, but at that point, her life and my life had started to change, and I just wasn't really focused on all of that, and it's not really relevant to the point that I'm making today. The next time she really caught back onto my radar was when she, A, became a judge on the show The Voice, and B, announced that she was dating Blake Shelton. I wasn't super familiar with Blake Shelton, but it seemed odd to me that a punk alternative woman would be dating a country music star. Not to put people into boxes, but they just seemed like a strange match. Kind of like Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, but that's an episode that I just do not have time for. Although I am going to throw my opinion in the ring here right now in this episode, that in the next few years we're going to hear about Taylor going down the same conservative pipeline. There's even an article with People where Blake compares the two couples' relationships that I'll link below in the show notes. He's talking more about how neither of them are overshadowed by the other's fame within the relationships, which, if we have to get specific, both of these women are wildly more successful and well-known than their male counterparts were before they started dating. But again, this is just my opinion. I did not look up any statistics to back this up, so if you did and you want to fight me about it, go for it. So Gwen starts dating Blake, and the two marry in 2021 and are still married today. They've been dating since 2015. But it turns out her feminism may have just been performative, and God, does that hurt my ears to hear. Maybe I can use Gwen's prayer app or whatever it is. Hindsight really is 2020 though, and an article I found on Dear Media, link below, explains this really well. The article is by Bernadette Giacomazzo, who was there in their Doc Martens to see it all happening. Bernadette points out that Gwen claimed to be a lot of things over the years: a tomboy, a Harajuku girl, and even Japanese. But she never claimed to be a feminist. And looking back, I can see how that's true. I will say that I found part of the article to be a little harsh, discussing how Gwen always just fit into the mold of whatever guy she was dating at the time, because who among us hasn't fallen victim to that, especially at a young age? And I know that you're going to say, well, she's an adult now and she's older now. And she is, but if it was the habit that she had developed in her youth and never acknowledged or worked through, it would make sense that the pattern would continue into her relationship with Blake, who this is not confirmed. This is all just speculation that I have seen on the internet. Apparently is pretty conservative. We'll just put it that way. And I don't want to victim blame the fans because I would also be blaming myself. But to be fair, I do feel like I kind of deserve it. She gave the performative stereotype of a feminist, alternate appearance and lyrics like, "Oh, I'm just a girl, what's my destiny? What I've succumbed to is making me numb, and just a girl." And we all took that and ran with it. By we, I mean we heard what we wanted to believe from that. But the truth is, Gwen has been facing controversies for years. From her cultural appropriation, to her praise of a Tucker Carlson interview, to her partnership with the Hollow app, which is some Christian prayer app. And to just kind of touch lightly on the cultural appropriation situation, there was a time, especially kind of near the first No Doubt hiatus into her solo work, where she was obsessed with Harajuku girls and allegedly, I've read, only let the girls that she had, kind of her backup dancers and the just kind of her entourage at the time, only let them speak Japanese around her. And apparently also she claimed that she was Japanese at some point. And people are allowed to change. Perhaps as she's aged, she's realized that she held more conservative views and related more to the Christian faith. But to me, a change like that just seems like two completely different people. I myself have always been very alternative in my style, and I've always been left in my beliefs. And while those beliefs may bend and transform as I learn more information, I've never seen myself waking up one morning to be a MAGA Christian fundamentalist and having all of my tattoos lasered off. Not saying that she's doing those things, but those are just the way I see those two extremes. So even if Gwen's feminism was performative or a sign of the time in the mid-90s, what can we do about that now? Do we separate the art from the artist? Or has that illusion been broken? Because I have to be honest with you guys, I've been having a hard time listening to early No Doubt and not just feeling like, has this all been a lie? I guess to end this on a positive note, or a more hopeful note, editing Lydia here, it would have probably been helpful to include a definition of performative feminism in the beginning of the episode, but if you're still here and you're still like, what the heck are you talking about? Performative feminism refers to actions or statements that appear to be supportive of women's rights, but lack the genuine commitment and follow through. And they're often for personal gain or to polish an image. So at the time, having this persona was providing Gwen with personal gain. And like I said, maybe those really were her beliefs in the 90s, and maybe those beliefs have changed since then, and now her public persona, along with those beliefs, is different. But as someone that is just so in the public eye, who is a celebrity, who so many people look up to, it's kind of like influencers and celebrities these days, you do have that responsibility to think about how your actions and the way you portray yourself will influence those that are fans of you in a way that you or I or your average Joe wouldn't have to worry about as much. Not, again, saying that they can never change their mind or anything, but just kind of showing what that impact can look like in a public persona. Now, that is all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. Also, come visit me on Instagram under Whispers and Warnings Podcast. Please come back for another episode next week. As always, drink your water, take your meds if you need them, and don't let your feminism be performative.